Hey guys, I hope you are doing well. Welcome to part 3 of the Star Trek Iceberg. Before we jump in, I do want to apologize for some audio issues in my last video. I was having a problem with the cord for my mic, and I had to re-record a lot of the audio for that, so I am sorry if some of those issues leaked through. But with that out of the way, let's begin part 3 of the Star Trek Iceberg. We got a lot of good entries, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this video. As always, thank you to the original creators of the Icebergs, links are in the description below, and of course, thanks to you for watching. Klingons have two dicks. So, in Discovery, we can see a Klingon relieving himself. Curiously, the Klingon has two streams, implying that Klingons have two, Honestly, as strange and goofy as it is, if there was a race to have this type of biology, I definitely think it would be the Klingons. Kelvin Timeline. The Kelvin Timeline is an alternate reality that is represented in the modern Star Trek movies. The timeline was created when a Romulan mining vessel traveled back in time and attacked the USS Kelvin, altering history. The alternate timeline is a good way to reboot the series without decanonizing everything that came before. The look of the timeline has been criticized for looking a little too sterile and like an Apple store. I agree that it looks a bit plain, but I do like the look of the Enterprise, and I can respect the decision to make interiors look a bit more sterile, as they look a bit more futuristic and realistic. Data is fully functional. Ugh. Like the Klingon entry, I don't really want to talk about this, so I'll be brief. In the Next Generation episode The Naked Now, the crew becomes intoxicated by the air. Lieutenant Yar starts talking to Data, and he informs her that he is fully functional. You can probably use your imagination to figure out what that means, and why he is built like that. I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Flutter. Voyager being Voyager, Flutter, known better as Flutter T. Water III, is a character from the holodeck fairy tale program The Adventures of Flutter, where he and his other elemental friends roam around the Forest of Forever. I know I give Voyager a lot of crap for being just a bit too whimsical, but I do like Flutter, and I wish we could have seen more of him, as he only appeared in one episode. Swole Comics. I think this entry refers to the Next Generation comic Mirror Broken, where the Mirror Universe counterparts of the Enterprise D crew are unusually buff. Cardassian Necktric. The Cardassian Necktric was a stunt that Odo would perform during his time working for the Cardassians on Deep Space Nine. The trick was never shown or described on screen, but it would apparently bring the house down. Mackenzie. Mackenzie, also known as Mackenzie Calhoun, is a Genesian Starfleet captain who appeared in many non-canon novels as well as the Star Trek Online video game. Delete the wife. Voyager is rife with silly quotes. This time from the episode Fair Haven, Captain Janeway begins falling for a holodeck character named Mike Sullivan. She finds out that the character is married and starts to get a bit jealous, so she tells the holodeck to delete the character of his wife from the program.
Oh, one more thing. Access is interpersonal. Subroutines, familial characters. Delete the wife.
Boothby. Boothby is an extremely wise Starfleet Academy groundskeeper. He provided advice to many Starfleet captains, including Picard and Janeway, while they were cadets. Lieutenant Pineapples. I think this entry refers to Lieutenant Reed from Enterprise, whose favorite food is pineapples, despite being allergic to them. Sea Hunt and Wagon Train. Sea Hunt and Wagon Train were two shows that heavily influenced the original series. Sea Hunt started in 1958 and followed a scuba diver's adventure as he helps the U.S. Coast Guard. Wagon Train is a much more well-known influence on the original series. Gene Roddenberry actually pitched Star Trek to networks as Wagon Train in Space. Beginning in 1957 and going on for 8 seasons, this Western classic followed a wagon caravan as they traveled out west to California from Missouri. The series was primarily built around an Adventure of the Week format that Star Trek would become very famous for. Paris was destroyed. In 2026, World War III broke out on Earth. Nuclear weapons played a prominent role in the war, and by the end, most major cities were devastated by nuclear bombs, including Paris. We see Paris later in Deep Space Nine, with important monuments such as the Eiffel Tower intact. Perhaps the tower escaped the apocalypse, but most likely it was just rebuilt as it is such an important structure. Gainan's attack clause. The TNG character Gainan is super mysterious. It's obvious that she has great powers, but the extent is never revealed. When she meets Q in the episode Q Who, she raises her hands, possibly to use her powers to defend herself. Or she really was just going to scratch him to death. Kurzodo. This entry refers to the Deep Space Nine episode Facets, where members of the Deep Space Nine crew channel former hosts of the Dax symbiont. Odo channels Curzon Dax, but he starts to combine with him. Similarly to Tuvix, the two characters wish to remain as one, but Captain Sisko does not agree and has Curzon removed from Odo's body. I'm taking a shit. I'm pretty sure this entry refers to a parody t-shirt where somebody asks Scotty not to beam him up because he is occupied. However, the eye extends upwards, implying that the anonymous crew member's request fell on deaf ears. Tuvix is a trolley problem. The trolley problem is a thought experiment where a trolley is about to collide with a number of people. However, the trolley could be diverted to kill only one person. This relates to Tuvix, as Janeway's choice to convert Tuvix back to Tuvok and Neelix essentially murders the character. However, if she let Tuvix remain as he was, it could be seen as killing both Tuvok and Neelix. She ultimately chooses the option that kills the fewest amount of people. However, there is a greater suffering from this choice, as we the viewers now have to deal with Neelix for another 5 seasons. Object, verb, subject. Object, verb, subject is an alternate word order that is used in some Star Trek languages, namely Klingon, in order to make them sound more alien. For example, instead of saying the dog chased the ball, Klingons would phrase it as ball chased dog. Fair Maiden. Another quote, this time not from Voyager. In the TOS episode The Naked Time, the Enterprise crew is infected and begins acting strangely. At one point, Sulu jumps out at Lieutenant Uhura and calls her Fair Maiden. Uhura responds that she is neither. This was reportedly ad-libbed by actress Nichelle Nichols. Garrick XBashir. Throughout Deep Space Nine, Garrick grows very close to Dr. Bashir. Their relationship led fans to theorize that Garrick was attracted to Dr. Bashir and wanted to pursue a romantic relationship with him. This was pretty much confirmed by Garrick's actor Andy Robinson in the Deep Space Nine documentary What We Left Behind.
What did Garrick think of Bashir? Were they friends? Did they develop a friendship, or was he using him the whole time?
At first, he just wanted to have sex with him.
AlKabiri Drive. The AlKabiri Drive is the real-life theoretical warp drive in which space is contracted in front of an object and expanded behind it. This configuration of space would allow an object to travel faster than light, something that is not possible in normal space. Interestingly, the concept of this drive was made in 1994, years after the method of warp drive in Star Trek was mostly fleshed out. The scientist behind the drive actually says that his theory was inspired by the show. Make things go. This entry refers to the Pack-led species seen in Next Generation episode Samaritan Snare. This less advanced species searches for technology that, quote, makes things go. Despite their seeming lack of intellect, they appear to be more cunning and devious than they look, as they deceive other races into providing them with technology that makes things go. Crusher's sex ghost. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to talk about this. TNG Season 7 is one of the strongest seasons in the entire franchise. However, it also includes hands down the worst episode in all of Star Trek, Sub Rosa. Words can't really describe how god-awful this episode really is. Dr. Crusher's grandmother dies, so she's given a candle as an heirloom. However, this candle contains with it the spirit of a man who fell in love with an ancestor of Crusher's and has since been having relations with all of the women of Crusher's family. This episode is just gross and disturbing, and it really boggles my mind how none of the creators seem to have an issue with it at the time. Cat Poetry Remix. Data's Ode to Spot has been remixed by multiple people into some true bangers. I will include some of my favorites in the description below. Vulcan Kerplunk. The Vulcan game Kalto is made of several rods that must be made into a perfect sphere. The use of rods does resemble the game Kerplunk, where players must remove rods in a manner that would keep marbles inside a tube from falling. I think Kalto resembles Jenga more than Kerplunk, but perhaps it was inspired by both games. Newt sex. I have no idea what this entry refers to. The closest thing I can think of is from the infamous Voyager episode Threshold, where Tom Paris and Captain Janeway become amphibian-like creatures and reproduce. Newts are amphibians, so I assume that this is what the entry refers to, but as you can probably imagine, this entry was very difficult to research. If you guys have any insight, please let me know in the comments. Replicated food is made from poop. The replicators seen in Star Trek can convert matter in order to make pretty much anything. Of course, matter cannot be created, so it must be recycled. Matter can come from literally anything, so the replicators are a good way to dispose of waste. All kinds of trash is probably used, including organic waste. Of course, the matter is completely changed, so any products from the replicators have no resemblance to poop. The prophets are dicks. The prophets of Deep Space Nine are kind of mean. In Emissary, they initially want to destroy Captain Sisko because he is a corporeal being and is not as advanced as they are. Also, the prophets just kind of stand by and let horrible things happen. Like, they could have easily prevented the Dominion War, but they just kind of stand by and let trillions of people die. Peanut Hamper. Ensign Peanut Hamper is a robotic exocomp Starfleet officer from the lower decks. The name Peanut Hamper was made by her because she thought it would make her sound less robotic. Jo Trimble. Jo, or Betty Joanne Trimble, is a Star Trek superfan. She was an important member of the letter-writing campaign that saved the original series by renewing it for a third season. She also was one of the people that convinced President Ford to name the first space shuttle the Enterprise. She has written many books about Star Trek and its community and is highly respected by the fandom. She also played an extra in the motion picture alongside hundreds of other fans. Starfleet knew about the Borg before 2365. The TNG episode Q Who was meant to be an introduction to the Borg, with the Federation seemingly knowing nothing about them. However, in the Enterprise episode Regeneration, we see Starfleet introduced to the Borg in the 22nd century, almost 100 years before Q Who. It is likely that Starfleet covered up this incident, or they could have forgotten about it, as nothing really happened with the Borg for centuries. Tom Paris is Nick Locarno. Robert Duncan McNeil, who plays Tom Paris in Voyager, also played Nick Locarno, a one-off character in the TNG episode The First Duty. The characters have very similar stories, as they were both expelled from Starfleet for causing the deaths of their co-pilots. McNeil was initially supposed to play Locarno in Voyager, but the character was changed to Tom Paris because the writers thought that Locarno was irredeemable. We see Star Trek actors play multiple characters all the time, so this is likely just an example of that. I do not think they are the same character. Bonaventure versus the Phoenix. Before First Contact, Earth's first warp-capable vessel was called the Bonaventure. However, First Contact establishes that it was Zefram Cochrane's Phoenix. The Bonaventure is never seen or heard of after First Contact. Species 180. The Borg's designation for the Ferengi is 180, which is relatively low considering how far the Borg are from the rest of the galaxy. This would imply that the Borg and the Ferengi had a run-in pretty early on. Klingon Bird of Prey designations. The Klingon Bird of Prey seems to have multiple designations, being called the Cavort, Burrell, and D12. It is likely that these designations refer to different variants of the ship, possibly different weapons configurations or different systems. The Preservers. The Preservers are a mysterious race mentioned in TOS episode The Paradise Syndrome. These aliens transported a group of human Native Americans to another planet in order to preserve their culture. It is possible that the Preservers may have done this to other humans throughout time, which could explain why we see planets that resemble the Roman Empire or 1920s Chicago in other episodes of the original series. And there it is, part 3 of the Star Trek Iceberg. I hope you guys enjoyed. We are starting to get to the more obscure and interesting entries. The videos are about to get a lot more fun, so subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss when I upload them. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.